Hello, welcome everyone to Guthrie News Page. I'm Chris Evans. Today, joined by House District 31 candidate Logan Trainer. Logan, thanks so much for joining me.
Thank you for having me. I really appreciate it, Chris.
And we got to meet just the other day for the first time, hour and a half conversation.
You were keeping time?
Well, I know I was running late.
Yes.
I was running late at 10:15. We were supposed to be there at 10. That was my fault. County Commissioner's fault, I should say.
That's okay.
But then we went about 11:45 because it was lunchtime. So
That's right.
So I knew that. So, but enjoy the conversation.
Yes. Oh my goodness. You know, it's just another testimony to just this whole campaign has been such a phenomenal experience. Getting a chance to talk with people, hear exactly what their background is, what their story is, and the same for you. And you got a chance to hear from me, and it's a pleasure and it's a blessing to be able to do it again right here today.
Absolutely. So let's talk about it. So you've been everywhere almost.
Yeah.
You were telling me the other day. I remember Houston. I remember El Paso. Just kind of got a little bit of feedback on you.
So I was born in Fort Worth, but raised in Sugar Land, Texas my whole life, which is southwest part of Houston, about 25 minutes outside of Houston. Graduated high school out there and decided to go to the University of Texas, El Paso. And, was able to walk on for the basketball team there, played for a season. Figured out that, all these guys can get the job done. From the first guy, your captain, to the last man on the bench. It is a phenomenal experience, though, to play Division I in that regard. Ended up, finishing out with business management there. Met my wife out there as well. In that last year, you have to take a fine arts credit. And I decided to take theater. And instantaneously, I guess they call it the bug, or, the acting bug. And fell in love with it, and then started, really liking the movies from the 40s, the 50s, the 60s, the 70s. All those were the stage actors back then. But even as you go forward, in the 80s and the 90s, I've always loved cinema. So that was a great experience, and I thought, well, you know what? Let's just go out to Los Angeles and pursue that. And, did it, tried it, realized that, the films that they were being made at that moment, this was like, I think, 2011, 2012. They just weren't the same anymore. I think the storylines had kind of, they just weren't that storyline that I like and appreciated. Like, I don't know, There Will Be Blood, or No Country for Old Men. Those were like, mid 2000s. But since then, it's a whole different scenario. And then I said, well, it's time to put on my big boy pants. So, I spent some time in New Mexico and worked out there. And then I was in Seattle, Washington. I took a job in Seattle from 2018 to 2021 is when I was out there working for UPS. And that's kind of how everything started in terms of my journey. But anyway, I thought I'd just catch you up to speed in terms of, where all I've been and how it led me to come here.
And you got here not too long ago. So I don't know how exactly when you got here, but I asked you the other day, Logan County, Guthrie, how in the world did you find Logan County?
We were already here. We got here last January. And, for us, we obviously, it was renting at first before we decided to purchase a house. We wanted to make sure that, we already taken somewhat of a risk, renting a house sight unseen. But, obviously we have the internet and pictures and all that kind of stuff. But, when we finally got down here and I started getting, started and was working over at Jackie Cooper BMW, that's when we were ready to start looking for houses. And my lease was already coming up right around that same time. And I just so happened to have a sale with one of my first clients who happened to be a real estate agent. And my wife and I were already talking about relocating and doing something a little bit bigger because it was a bigger property in Seattle, and we kind of wanted to match that, And I noticed, Sorghum Mill, Danforth, Coffee Creek, Cavell, you keep going northward. I noticed the property started getting larger and larger. And then there was definitely one that we had saw, one of the first houses that we actually put in our consideration list was actually in Logan County. And it fit everything that we were looking for, being, having the acreage, and as well as, then also being outside the city limits. It was a different feel, but it was something that we knew right away when we went to look at that house. It was the first house we looked at, and it was just, it was instantaneous. As soon as you walked through that threshold, we knew this is the house that we wanted. And, Logan County being the name Logan, that's also very serendipitous.
Yeah, there you go.
But either way, though, it's special. It didn't take too long to realize going forward that, it was a little bit different than Oklahoma County, but then Oklahoma as a whole was also different, from my time in Texas or even in California or Washington. But it was special in that regard. It was the people. So it's just been still somewhat of a new experience for me, but at the same time, very familiar, if that makes sense, in terms of just the sincerity and the kindness of the people of Oklahoma has just been out of this world.
So when you moved here, did you have any political aspirations? How did that come about?
It was interesting because everything all happened within, a 1 week, 2 week time frame when I found out, exactly where we'd be moving at. But at the same time, also finding out too that Gary Mize, the incumbent, would be vacating his seat. And I had already been talking to an associate, and they had mentioned basically that, they got a chance to hear from me and what I was about and what my beliefs were, because I was already starting to go to Oklahoma Conservative Political Action Committee events. And but I was also just talking to people at my gym, at work, at church. And it was always, when are you going to run for office? And, I always said, it never really crossed my mind in that regard because I was always one that would study it and research it in terms of what I didn't like about policy or, how things were going in said areas of the country. But at one point I'd realized that, the incumbent here is actually going to be vacating his seat. And it got to a place where I knew when I first got here that I needed to do something. And I thought that meant just going down to Edmond Town Hall meetings when I first got here and being part of different candidates' campaigns. But I think it was a little bit deeper than that. Now that I look back and I realize that it all came together right around the same time in terms of having the opportunity to run for that seat, as well as happening to be just living there at the same time. And I just felt like, you can't make this up. This stuff just kind of falls right into place. And that's kind of how it started. And
I've just met you. You have a great personality, just a great personality. How have you, the quick move here, how have you been able to know people, know who to talk to, all that good stuff?
Wow. It just, everything comes so natural from a standpoint of being at home instantaneously in Oklahoma, no matter where I'm living at or where I go to, the gym. I've had to change gym location since I've moved as well, but we're talking about a couple minutes difference. Either way, it's always the same in terms of being able to hear people where they're coming from, what their beliefs are, what their values are, what their principles are. And then just my personality has always been one of genuinely interested in hearing what the other person has to say and where they're coming from. So, like you said, it just fit, and the campaign has definitely showed that in so many different ways. And I feel, so grateful to have the opportunity to sit in front of people and just hear where they're coming from, hear their concerns, hear their needs. It's been a learning experience too. It's made me grow as a person and understand how to properly really see where people are coming from, and not just on a surface level, but really on a deep level, and then to see, I wonder how we can pinpoint where they're going as a solution. And that's not just as a person, that's as, different sectors within a city, or different institutions or different businesses. And because it all kind of blends together. But the thing that you always remember is that whether it be an institution, whether it be, schools, whether it be a municipality or a business, it's still made up of people, right. And I really believe this is a people business. It's a relational business, and I take it very seriously, and I really feel called and honored to be able to serve in this capacity.
And we'll get to some of the specific questions that all candidates are hearing right now, knocking on doors and all that good stuff. Just moving here, so it kind of gives you maybe an advantage because you don't know the inner cliques. You don't know this group. Now obviously you're learning them as you go on in a political process, yes. But a little bit of advantage of not knowing how this works or the inner works or behind the scenes and all that good stuff. You kind of get a fresh perspective of Logan County.
Oh my goodness. Yeah. Even when when you move to an area and you're and you're new there, wherever it is, it's always a process. It's likened to those that are in the military, and they move from place to place to place, and or the child in school, a military family. Yeah. It's always having to start all over again. But to do that in a way where now you're talking about, I don't know, a campaign, and running for public office, that kind of is, it's even more intensive. But at the same time, I really believe my time in Seattle delivering packages at UPS was a huge preparation in that regard, because you're used to going to people's houses. Right. You're used to going to the doors. You're used to having conversations. You're used to being barked at by the dog, So, but no, it's been very intensive. But I've felt very prepared in that regard to do the groundwork of what makes a quality candidate in terms of dealing with people face to face at the doorsteps.
Before we get into questions, a big part of running for office is raising money.
Yes.
How's that going for you? And again, not knowing anybody, how have you been able to get financial support for your campaign, and who some of those people, some of your big supporters are?
Yeah, well, I don't have any big supporters. It's just been pretty much family and friends. Okay. And once again, that's tough to do in a new town where most of the time if you're talking about a local race or a statewide race, you've probably had the time and experience to develop a lot of friendships over 10, 15, 20 year period, a lifetime. But for me, I don't have any big donors. I was the first to max out my own contribution. I really am a big believer in that, in terms of putting your money where your mouth is. So as far as the fundraising part, that's one of my harder or tougher parts in this whole campaigning business. When it comes to the relational part, it comes second nature, because it's almost it's very encouraging, and I love that aspect of it. But the fundraising, could there have been more as we dwindle down to the final election? I'm sure,
there can always be more.
But I've had to make do with what I have, and so when it comes to signage and stuff like that, I don't have the most, and that has a lot to do with just the ability to raise funds, and but at the same time, I understand it's a valuable process. It's a valuable part of any campaign, because it's how you get your who you are and what you're about, what your beliefs are, out to people. And it's made me gain a whole new respect for anybody seeking to run for office, because I think a lot of constituents and people that are just kind of watching how it all goes have no idea that for just gas, I mean, I'll be honest, gasoline is, and especially in this time we're in right now, it adds up very quickly. But once again, I wouldn't have it any other way, because this has been such a labor of love, and it's kind of your baby. It's your first time at this, so you treat it as such. So that's how that's going.
That's awesome. So, okay, the big reason why I have you on here is so people know who you are and meet you. There was a OK2A forum that was held that two opponents showed up, that the one that you did not attend. And I'm going to ask some of the questions that you did as well, just so we can hear your thoughts on that. But can you just share why you were unable or did not attend that?
Yeah, absolutely. I didn't really know too much about the organization. I did recently fill out a survey before the actual form was done. And then on top of that, once again, this being my first time, whether it be, funds, running a business, family, all these different things, prioritization is number one. And at that point, and even now, I still believe hitting the doors, and meeting the people face to face takes precedence. And I've talked to many elected officials that have said the exact same thing. However, now looking back at it, I realize that, it's not so much, not knocking door to door and being in front of the people. It's more so people can understand a little bit better who you are and how you're able to answer questions in a forum setting. So, it's one of those things that moving forward, I'm definitely excited to look forward to the next one. I think, speaking of which, I just confirmed, earlier with Guthrie Chamber of Commerce, and I believe that's June 23rd.
Yes.
And I will be in attendance. And so it's one of those deals that, once again, for those that are watching this, you're talking about a novice, kind of making their first foray into the world of campaigning as well as politics. Yeah. And there's mistakes sometimes that are made, but sometimes you don't know. You just figure that, it's best to talk to the people face to face. But going forward, I'm excited for the Guthrie Chamber of Commerce Forum.
Yeah, I might know a moderator or two that might be hosting that forum. So look forward to that and appreciate your answer there. Okay, so I'm going to get to some of the questions that we asked on that night. I was okay who asked me to moderate that, and we streamed that. And so I brought the same questions. I might not get to all of them because we don't keep everyone waiting on the show. But first question. There's always two questions I always have at the beginning.
Yes.
Why, I don't want to say crazy world, but a crazy world right now, why run and why run for any race with the world, but especially District 31?
That's a great question. And you have to be clear on that from the get-go. My biggest thing is just true servant leadership, truly having a need to understand where people are coming from as far as policy is concerned, from a community setting all the way up to a county level, in this case, Logan County. But to also know that when you do decide to run for this, you have to understand the whole gamut. And some of that you'll learn along the way. My biggest thing was always, what motivated me was coming from living in Seattle those 3 years. It was so pivotal. It was so eye-opening. It was such a monumental time. It was very tumultuous because you're talking about 2020, and the whole nation could be seen in different areas operating different ways. And that's when, I started realizing, okay, policy is very real. And different states operate differently. I was one that, I grew up Christian conservative household. My folks walked out the Word of God right in front of us, and I still credit them as the biggest examples for me. But when you find yourself in a place like Seattle during 2020, and the police precinct has been raided and is on fire. Squad cars are on fire and overturned. Small businesses are being looted and raided. And it wasn't just there. It just so happened to be very radical left cities that I saw that in. And it didn't take too long to start really thinking about my decision in terms of where I wanted to go next. The hardest part about that decision was our church up there in Seattle. We considered them family. We still do, and we miss them dearly. And we had some buddies that actually were living and went to that church that we went to in Seattle that were from Oklahoma. And once they realized that our sights were set on Oklahoma, they gave us some recommendations in terms of where were some areas that we could settle down, and that's kind of how that started. And when I got here, I'll never forget, I told my wife, I said, sweetheart, I don't know what I need to do, but I want to get involved. And that kind of goes back to the beginning of this sit-down interview in terms of it all started there, because I now realize that if you don't have the right representation, if you don't have the right policy, and I'm coming from a place of, very American traditional value set, biblical perspectives, biblical principles, our Constitution. If you don't understand these things, it makes it hard to appreciate our country. But if you do, it makes it even more appreciative when you come to a state like Oklahoma, where that's already the foundation of the state. I really, truly believe that's what makes Oklahoma so phenomenal. It is different than a lot of states in this nation, and I can say that because I've lived in other states, and I'm now here, and it's the contrast couldn't be more apparent. So, that's where I'm coming from in regard to, hey, Logan, why why are you doing this? And it's because I know what it's like to be at the mercy, of a populace that doesn't see anything wrong as an authoritative, tyrannical government has really overstepped their bounds. I know what it's like to be passed up for not taking a vaccine for a job. Yeah. I know what it's like to be reprimanded at your work for questioning, the legitimacy of, do these masks really work? Are they effective? And what's really going on here? And then, being declared essential versus non-essential. I just saw how much havoc that wreaked on a nation. And my biggest thing was, okay, one man can't do anything. And I've never approached it as such. But I do understand that a community can, a tight-knit community can, a county can. And matter of fact, a lot of times that's kind of the realm of influence about as far as it can go, before a next county and a next, set of elected officials are running that particular county. With Logan County, the passions and beliefs and the values and the things that people love about why they live where they live was almost a direct match for me. And I think that's what makes the ability to have these discussions and talk about my love for Oklahoma and more so my love for Logan County just so natural and so easy. So that's kind of the long view of my whole motive of why I'm deciding to get involved and represent the people in the best way that I possibly can.
I'm disappointed. I don't know why I didn't think of Logan for Logan County. That would be pretty cool. But the other popular question I asked, I've been doing this for a few days. If elected,
yes.
What would be the first bill that you would propose and pass into law?
That's a great question. There's so many, and I've heard it before. Honestly, I think one of them would be putting God back in schools. It could be having the 10 Commandments back. Yep. It could be starting off school with prayer in each classroom. And maybe it's not so much a hard legislation, but it's saying if you want to, you can. And I really believe that it's very important to me as I see what's going on today. And the schools are the number one topic that I hear about at the doorstep. And there's a lot of issues that need addressing in the most immediate manner and fashion. But I also believe in the spiritual foundation of any community. And I really believe if we stay close to God and if we continue to honor him, including in our schools, I believe it could have a huge impact on how things are done and in the minds of these young children, which are so precious because they're our future leaders. I saw a bill that was up, to get voted on a couple months ago, and that was to make the Bible the state book.
State book, yeah.
So I'm not too far off in that regard or in that vein of putting God back in our institutions, and in this case, our public schools.
Well, and I'll have a question here a little bit on education as well. But the one with your short time here since January, what do you see as the biggest need for the community, for the district?
Okay. I would say roads.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would say roads. But like I said,
the rainfall's not helping those, by the way, right now. Which I love the rain right now because I know what's coming in June and July and August. No rain, so we'll take the rain when we can. But it is having an impact on the roads. Yeah,
I would say roads, but you know what? It's hard. It'd be also schools.
Yeah,
public schools. Teachers. Teachers are so valuable, and what they do does not go unnoticed. And I had the opportunity to go to Guthrie Upper Elementary School, and had a chance to speak with a few of the faculty. And it's then where you really understand the day to day, and you understand. And specifically, more so, one particular teacher, she told me why she does it, and it's the effect, the profound effect. And we were just talking before this we even recorded. You talked about Ms. Patterson.
Yes.
And every one of us has that one 2 or even 3 teachers
Yeah.
that left an indelible positive impression on our lives. And in many ways, we thank them, because where we're at today, whether they know it or not, I think teachers know it. They are the reason why a lot of people are successful in the given endeavors they choose to go in. So I would say, schools and more so, addressing teachers, and roads for Logan County. Roads are a big one, because, when you see the economic future of Logan County, it's a very bright one.
Yeah.
It really is. And it's on track to become that. And one of the main points for building that infrastructure literally is having, nice, smooth, paved roads. But I understand, there's a process to this, and the way it works in terms of how those funds are appropriated within the 3 districts. And we talked about this a couple days ago in terms of how it goes where, and to depend on how much mileage, and then bridges is another thing. And that all changes depending on what district. But nonetheless, it has a huge part for the economic growth of any community, let alone Logan County's community. So those 2 things I would have to just keep at the top.
All right, education, roads, and crazy enough, those are 2 of the questions. Maybe a little bit more specific,
Yeah.
but I want to read this exactly as I read it to the other candidates, so I don't mess it up. Mainly, so I don't mess it up. We've seen various number of topics at the legislature level when it comes to education here in the state of Oklahoma, from private schools to charter schools to public schools, vouchers, homeschool, all that good stuff. Can you please share us with your views on education and what actions you will look to take?
Say that one more time.
What some of the actions that you will take to address whatever those may be with all those?
Well, I think said earlier, the populace is number one. The populace is who elects any official. So with that said, it's very imperative that whoever's elected has the ability and the desire to want to have, whether it be a town hall meeting, whether it be an event at the chamber, or whether it be, a coffee, meeting, whatever it is, something to where people in whatever the affected area is are having a discussion about, problems that are going on, but then more importantly, propose solutions that will work. I'm a firm believer in there's a solution to every problem. And I always see the glass half full. So having people that are much more having expertise on whatever issue it is that's being discussed, and then having counsel, having panels. I mean, the answers are always here. It's just a matter of, is one getting the community involved?
Yeah.
Because I'm part of the community too, and that's whose needs need to be addressed. So there's no better, group of people to ask than the community. So I'm a firm believer in just having those types of organizations, those events, those meetings, to where we can bounce things off of one another and then see what the possible solutions are, whether it be some type of, policy or bill or legislation, or just a concerted effort within the community.
Yeah, Governor Stitt and his Secretary of Education, Ryan Walters, are seeking those vouchers, the money to follow the child.
Oh, yes.
And they might live in a public school district, but they're wanting to maybe move that money to a private school or a charter school.
Yeah.
Your thoughts on that, on the money process?
I'm a huge advocate of that, because, as a parent myself, one realizes that, parents have their needs, children have needs, but parents have needs. And the needs of parents are for their children to receive the education that they believe is best for their child. And at the same time, I think, charter schools offer a great incentive for both the charter school, the child, and the parent. I believe it's a win-win all around in terms of having those needs met that the parents require, especially when it comes to the money following the child. So to answer your question, I'm a huge advocate of money following the child.
Parents' choice.
Yes.
All right. Logan County and several other Oklahoma counties continue to search for more funding for roads and bridges? We just talked about like you saw the questions coming ahead, which did not. Can you please share with us your understanding of county funding and your vision moving forward? And if you understand county funding, then let me know, because I've been trying to follow it for a while, and I know a little bit to be dangerous, but it is so confusing. I don't know if they want it to be so confusing on the state level, but just your thoughts on roads and bridges and the funding and how in the world it might work.
It's one of those things once again, and I have no problem admitting when I just don't know something in terms of all the details and the ins and outs. And I understand at one point, the state of Oklahoma is given X amount of dollars, every year. And then from there, that goes to different entities within the state, within districts. And then from there, it's voted on, where that money actually flows to. Yeah. And that's a huge undertaking to be able to see how one is able to come up with more funds to address these issues. But once again, for every problem, there's a solution. I really believe there's a solution. I've heard it said in terms of, this form of tax or this particular increase here. I'm not a huge fan of unnecessary spending or unnecessary taxes, but I think we can all agree, and I got both hands up. I am not opposed to paying more taxes in order that I can, enjoy smooth roads throughout the whole county. Yeah. And I don't think the constituents feel different either. And I know, a lot of we want to try to hold as much money as possible because it's your money, you work for it. But at the same time, when it comes to these infrastructures, especially in one that's an ever-growing one in Logan County, to the best of my knowledge, to answer this question right now, I think there is a way to appropriate more funds in order to improve the roads and bridges in Logan County.
Yeah, the southern part of the District 1, if you will, here in county, it's just so many people. It's the third fastest growing county in the state of Oklahoma. Yes. And I think it's throughout the Logan County, but particularly down in the Waterloo Road in that area. But yes. Okay, so this next question here, this is one that the OK2A kind of gave me. It's interesting. The question is, do you support legislation clarifying that the duly elected sheriff is the highest ranking law enforcement officer in the county in which he or she is elected? It's back and forth. Is it the district attorney? Is it the sheriff's office? Is the sheriff? This is not about me, but I always think, well, I don't mind if, worst case scenario, if I was arrested, okay, I don't want to be charged. The DA charges, the sheriff arrests. But anyway, I see both sides of it. But anyway, do you support legislation clarifying that the duly elected sheriff is the highest ranking law enforcement officer in the county which he or she is elected?
Yeah, I remember answering that in the OK2A survey. Yeah. My response was yes, I do. I support law enforcement, and I definitely support the sheriff. That is an earned and duly elected position, and that position comes with being the highest office in regard to law enforcement in the county. Yeah. And so I say yes to that particular question.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you support legislation prohibiting, and you're a former athlete, probably still a good athlete, you probably get up and down the floor. Do you support legislation prohibiting a biological male from competing in female sports programs regardless of whether they have undergone or undergoing gender reassignment therapy?
This is prohibit?
Yeah.
Yes, absolutely. I mean, we go back to, prayer in schools, the spiritual, and I get it. Some people don't want to, discuss these things. And for me, I can't help but to profess, my faith in Christ, my love of God, and wanting to do things a certain way. In regards to, this question here, it just has no business in any setting when it comes to public schools or, collegiate level. I really believe, women competing in women's sports and men competing in men's sports. Yeah. So, but, that's my belief system.
Very nice. Big topic, statewide races, nationwide races. Do you agree that human life begins at conception?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Once again, um, and I'm glad we're talking about these, because if these weren't even issues, there really be no reason to run, if that makes any sense. It's because this is how far we've gotten as a nation in terms of, moving the other direction, that I believe we need more people, who may not have political backgrounds, and they don't have the experience, but at the same time, they have common sense. They know right from wrong. And in this regard, once again, my faith in God, my belief on Christ Jesus, my love for Christ Jesus, my love for the Word of God. And I'm not perfect by any stretch of the means, and I want to make sure that's understood. I do my best to walk with Christ daily. But in regard to my take on abortion and believing if life starts at conception, absolutely it does. And I believe in fighting for the rights of the unborn. I'm a fan of what Governor Stitt has recently signed into law, making Oklahoma one of the strictest states in regard to anti-abortion laws. So that's my position when it comes to being extremely pro-life and extremely protective of the unborn. They all have rights.
What would you say about rape, incest, and health to the mother?
And once again, for me, it's a matter of the child. And for some, it may come off as extreme. And for others, it comes off as, that's exactly how I believe too, Logan. But I believe that baby is so precious. And when you have children, it changes your viewpoint. God forbid anything happen to the woman, that was raped, and incest, that's something that's got to be horrific and very traumatic. And I don't support that at all. But as far as that baby is concerned, I don't know what it is. I mean, I guess maybe when that midwife put, my first and my second in my arms, I immediately thought differently. A whole new world opened up. I looked at people differently. I understood people differently, because I realized we were all babies at one point.
Yeah.
And what would have happened if someone else had an abortion? I mean, that could be the next, Albert Einstein, or, Nobel Peace Prize winner, or Michael Jordan, or, whomever, someone that would contribute in such a way to the world that now we'll never see those contributions.
Yeah, it's a tough subject, and that's why I brought in the rape, the incest, and my wife was adopted, and I totally, what would my life look if she wasn't adopted? But I also feel sorry for those rape victims and those incest victims. And so it's a tough discussion.
Yeah.
And I think we're getting more comfortable talking about that.
Yes.
And even if we disagreed or agree, it's good to have civil discussion about that, no matter how each side kind of fights. It's good to have discussion and do that deal. So appreciate you talking about that. Okay, let's move to a few of the gun things. There's a lot going on in the world.
Yes.
In Tulsa, all that's going on. Just your thoughts. You mentioned the OK2A survey. Have you seen an NRA survey?
Yes.
And just your thoughts on the surveys, and then gun control. If you had the answer, I think you'd be very popular right now. So I don't know if there's a perfect answer out there right now, but what your stance on gun control or guns? Weapons.
It is definitely a hot topic, especially with what's going on. But I think the thing to remember is once again, common sense. But then again, common sense can be different for different people. It is unfortunate what happened in Uvalde, as well as, in Buffalo, as well as just recently in Tulsa. And my heart goes out to all the families and friends that have been affected by that. It's never easy to do, to go through, I should say. But at the same time, I'm a firm believer in the Second Amendment for so many different reasons. Once one understands the Constitution and each 27 of the amendments, you get a better understanding of your freedoms, your liberties, your rights. And, there comes a lot of responsibility with all of our freedoms. But as law-abiding citizens, I don't believe in making it difficult for law-abiding citizens to obtain any firearm, whether it be a shotgun, whether it be an AR, whether it be a handgun, because I've noticed it never stops with just, this piece of legislation. Being on the West Coast for some time, whether it be California or Washington, now I think even Washington just recently, it's now 10 capacity in terms of how many rounds you can carry, and as well as there are no castle doctrine laws, like Florida or Texas or Oklahoma.
Yeah.
So to answer your question, I'm a huge advocate in still making it, keeping it the way it is in terms of law-abiding citizens being able to purchase firearms. That's how I feel about that.
NRA survey, OK2A survey?
I've done the NRA survey.
Okay.
And as a member of the NRA, I've done their survey, completed their survey, and I've done the OK2A survey and completed their survey. And the same way I answered on their questions is the same way I'm answering now.
Maybe since you've seen that red flag, you have anything on that? I remember that's one of the questions that was asked at the forum.
That's right. It's not so much red flag as opposed to, I think they mentioned universal background checks.
Right.
And that was one thing on the survey that I did leave blank, because I noticed, these shooters, a lot of it is mental issues. But we also see a lot more details come out after these unfortunate events. And at one point, one realizes, there is a lot of alerts that popped up in regard to said shooter obtaining a firearm. And it's legal.
Yeah.
But, sometimes, if there are certain things put in place that tell a person, doing a check that, this person has recently checked into a mental institution, or, at a certain age and is already heavily on SSRI, which are antidepressants, because, antidepressants, there's a huge link with, and there's studies been done in terms of, suicide ideation and just having, thoughts come in that are not normal thoughts, if you will. It's just one of the, side effects of it. But, as far as could these things have been prevented, I think they could have. I do. And, but like I said, I still believe in the ability for all law-abiding citizens to be able to purchase firearms in accordance with, the age groups for different types of weapons that are already in place. I'm not a proponent of, new legislation that's saying now how you have to store, your firearm in your house, because, I was talking with some constituents the other day and they mentioned, well, now you let the bad guys know exactly where you,
who and where.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah. So, I don't really feel like it's a hairy topic at all. I feel like if you're a law-abiding citizen, there's already checks in play already right now. As far as the red flags, that's something that I believe on the OK2A survey, it's just, there's no need in that regard, simply because how can you tell the background of how that came up to be by concerned family or friend? What if it was an ex-girlfriend or an ex-wife and it was a matter of, vengeance, and now and you being, falsely accused of something that you're not, and now, your American right to own a firearm is now being relinquished. So I don't agree with that in that regard. But I do, like I said before, feel like is there another way, for those that have displayed any type of, been checked into a mental institution, something that can actually be, monitored, if you will. Not because one doesn't have any, not at all. It's just because I think if we do enough studies on anyone that's been in a shooting, the shooter themselves, it seems like it's the same, same background from a standpoint of, the depressants or antidepressants, or maybe had a stint at a mental institution and checked out, or or even wanted to check in. That's all documented. So I think we have to be careful in that regard.
I appreciate you visiting with me. Just a few more questions. I won't keep you much longer. I saw on Facebook you had an interaction with the superintendent of schools. I'm planning to meet him one day. Facebook is a great thing. Different worlds come together. But just meeting the whether it's the superintendent or city manager, you plan to meet any of those leaders of the community?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's a requirement.
Yeah.
But at the same time, once again, when you're new to this, it's almost you almost have to chuckle, if not take it, because it's not that one takes it lightly. It's just that of all places, I really believe in trying to do things in the most professional manner as I possibly can. For instance, how we met, and how we scheduled this. We didn't do it over Facebook.
No.
So, and anyone else that I've met that I was told, hey, you should meet, so and so, this is so new, and I am very eager to meet with the superintendent of Guthrie Public Schools, the superintendent of Edmond, the superintendent of Deer Creek, the superintendent of Cash and Crest. Like, because once again, schools are such a huge issue. It's such a huge topic, and so when it comes to that, and I think I was trying to address some other questions as well, and then I realized, after another post, that basically there's this inevitable misunderstanding that happens when it comes to any kind of text or writing, and it's a lesson learned for me to do my best. And I thought I was doing that before, but I guess I need to reiterate, to do my best to just set things up in a professional manner, to where an email is sent or a phone call is made. And it's one of those things that I thought was kind of interesting, because everybody else I've talked to, or someone said, you should speak with so-and-so.
Right.
And it was always well received for me, and we never had a problem meeting up, and I'll take a moment too. This whole campaign, this whole world of entering into public policy is very new, and I understand there's people that have done this for many decades. Like I said before, anybody that has been elected or done any type of campaign, or even involved on a campaign, or canvassed, or done door hangers, my utmost respect is to you,
100%.
because there's some things that you do that a guy or gal coming in who's never done this before, you may take for granted, and as well as the protocols, as well as, hey, the first few months we're going to do this, and in those first few months these are the key people that you need to meet. None of that was ever given.
Yeah.
So when I say chuckle, that's what I mean, chuckle in terms of, okay, wow, that's interesting in that regard. But I'll definitely make sure that we can sit down and have a conversation, as well as other municipalities, like, the city manager, the mayor, and other people that are leading in key areas of the county.
There's no doubt it is a learning process. I've seen it on this side.
Yeah.
And just knocking the doors. We talked about that. That would be the part that just, knocking the doors, that takes a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot to learn through this, especially going through the first time. So one last question for me before I let you have the last word here. There was a survey that went out, and I got the survey on my phone. Are you aware of the survey that went out? It was mentioned your two opponents. It didn't mention you.
Yeah.
20 questions, and I got it, and I was start off common questions, and then I take it because I'm a political nerd sometimes. And I'm like, oh, I'll take it. It's like, because you're afraid you're gonna get spam if you answer the questions. But I'm answering it, and it leaned one way toward one of your opponents with an attack with the Southwest Ledger newspaper a couple years ago.
Okay.
Were you aware of that? Do you know? I've heard so many conspiracy theories on this that Logan's name wasn't mentioned, so it was Logan who put it out. It was the opponent, the other opponent, who put it out to put it there. And I also heard it was the person that they went after put it out. So it looks like the other two made that person look bad. But have you seen the survey and your thoughts on that survey?
Yeah, somebody had reached out to me and asked me, and I had no idea what they were talking about.
Yeah.
And I said, what are you talking about? Because she just said, haven't you heard? And that was it. That was how she, I heard what, and then, I was, given the link, I guess, to this survey. And, the first few questions, okay, and then all of a sudden it was like, wow, once again, I go back to the original question, the question right before this, with the superintendent for Guthrie Public Schools. And, this has been such a learning process, and there's never been any malice or ill intent or let alone disrespect or just nastiness.
Yeah.
I don't believe in it. As a matter of fact, I've told people at the outset, I've told people at the doors, you can't lose with whomever you decide to go with. These are quality candidates here. And I have the utmost respect for each one of them. Once again, those that decide to put their name in that hat and run for office, I commend you, because I'm learning, in this regard, like you mentioned with the Facebook post and even this scenario, that, you're kind of hung out there.
Yeah.
In a way. And I get it. Somebody might say, well, you knew what you were signing up, I guess, but there's just always a respectful and cordial way to do things. So to answer your question, no, it's not coming from me. And it was a little bit depressing to see that. But at the same time, I believe each one of these candidates are very self-sufficient in that regard, to where they're mentally strong, they're mentally tough, and that's what's needed for a position or role like this. So, I don't think it's something to make bigger than it already is. Just go ahead and move on, and we'll all continue to run this race to the best of our abilities, and the candidate and the constituents will ultimately make their decision.
Yeah, all three of you done a great job campaigning. All three of you knocked doors. That's the number one thing, is knocking doors. The survey was a little bit of a curveball, because a lot of your answers are similar, and that's why you think whoever's elected would do a great job. But the survey was a little bit of a curveball, so I just wanted to throw that so you can say that, so people don't make up their own.
And why I wasn't on that, I have no idea. I thought, oh wow, maybe I'm not doing this. I thought I was, but that was my first reaction, and it just brings in another point, and I'll say this as quickly as I possibly can, that you have to be careful, mistaking perception for reality. Yeah. And I know it's a common phrase. I heard that in my corporate America days. Perception is reality. Perception, in a way, I get it where they're coming from, but I do my best to be as brutal, painfully honest and forthright as I possibly can, because I've gone into this campaign knowing that no matter what happens, I'm perfectly okay. Yeah. And whoever wins it, I will support. And I think that needs to be made clear off the get-go, even though we're at the end of the interview, which is, I've just been having a blast. Yeah. Really, I've just been having fun. And maybe it's kind of like, he doesn't know what he's doing. He messed up here, he messed up there, he should have been, and I don't say that in a way to where it's being flippant. I say it in a way of just saying, hey, you're getting I'm opening it up to you. You're getting a chance to see that, as compassionate as he is about the people and about policy and wanting to do well for the communities, he's human. Yeah. And to hold him or any in these great candidates, these fine people, to any other, to almost a standard of perfection isn't fair. Yeah. So I say, be easy on the candidates from a standpoint of the whispers and the rumors. Yeah. And just know that the other two and myself are doing or running the best race that we possibly can, and it's been a phenomenal experience, to say the least.
Well, okay, one more thing. I was throw it out there because
Yeah.
I've heard it.
Yeah.
I've heard it, and I just want you to answer it.
Yes.
You were placed here from Seattle here to take care of business here. You were placed here. Have you heard that?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I did.
All right. All right.
That one was so funny. I mean, because it just goes back to what I said right before this,
Yeah.
and what I was saying right before
Exactly.
that. And
That's what made me think of it. Yeah.
And I'm glad we get a chance to talk about it,
Yeah.
because I was receiving some phone calls after the first brochure came out, and there was one phone call in particular.
Nice brochure, by the way.
Thank you so much.
Yes. Yeah.
There was one that particularly had, she mentioned the same thing. This is a great brochure. I said, hey, thank you so much, and it's a blessing to be able to do this and to serve. She said, well, it's too good.
Yeah.
It's just too good. Excuse me. She said, yeah, how do I know you're not some George Soros plant, from Seattle? And I'm thinking, I don't know. I mean, that's new to me. And once again, we talked about Facebook, we talked about superintendent, we talked about, these different things, to where this is actually kind of cool, because constituents, residents, not just Logan County, but anyone that's viewing this, can now finally understand the beauty of all of this is that it's being documented, and we're doing this in real time. And you can see this as almost like a documentary. Like, these are some of the things that, if you're seeking public office, that you're going to have to address.
Yeah.
And it's weird, because they didn't know that in Seattle, you actually did a video against, George Soros on YouTube, when Newt Gingrich mentioned his name. And the whole studio got quiet.
Yeah.
And I wanted to deep dive into that and talk about, that this isn't a conspiracy, and, these things are really happening, funding different DAs and stuff like that in San Francisco, who just recently got recalled.
Yep.
Just 2 days ago.
Yep.
Or I believe, I don't know if it's true, but different attorney generals across the nation, but, I done it, and I believe it even got flagged, and my channel didn't stay up, because I would talk about things that I now hear people talking about, that I've had to even do surveys on, in terms of parental rights, vaccines, and that type of thing. And I ended up I kept bashing that Google algorithm of YouTube, and ended up being taken off. So it's weird, because you have a person that's been sometimes accused of being too far right. So when someone asks a question like that, you just think, I think I've seen it all now, to where, once again, no good deed goes unpunished.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no, I'm not a plant or anything like that. I think the thing that people realize the most, in terms of trying to, I guess, plead my cause, is a sincerity at the doors. That's where, the same with when we talk, across the street, a couple days ago, it's just, I'm open. It's just, this is who I am.
Yeah.
This is what I'm about. If I'm able to serve the people, to God be the glory. If I'm not, to God be the glory.
Yeah.
It's been a great campaign. And I always hope that my intentions are clear, that they're always coming from a place of gentleness, of love, and compassion. And that's not lip service. I really mean that. I really love this county. I really love this state and the people in it. So, yeah.
Man, I appreciate our visit. It's been a great one, just like our conversation the other day. Last thing for me, anything that I've left out that you want to address or go more into? Final thing for me, I just want to make sure I'm not overlooking something that you want to discuss.
Last closing thoughts, for me, is thank you so much.
Absolutely.
For providing this opportunity for me to communicate with the people on a broader scale. This has been a great time for people, hopefully, to get a chance to know more about me. And then I'll say this, I want to thank everybody that I've met. The only reason why that this is truly possible is, first and foremost, God. And then after that would be the warm reception of the community, of the constituents that I've had the ability to meet. So I want to say my warmest regards to you, and thank you so much for your support. It means so much more than you could ever know, and it literally is what I'm running on love and compassion. So thank you so much.
And I lied one more, and I apologize. I should have done this at the beginning. You
Yeah.
talked about your two babies. Talk
Yeah.
about your children. That's a cool. I messed that one up at the beginning. My apologies.
Oh no, absolutely. So my first I had in 2020. My wife, we had our child in Seattle in April, and matter of fact, right when COVID started, and you mentioned when we talk about abortion, you notice I talked midwife. I didn't say nurse because at one point we actually were going to the traditional route.
Okay.
And you know,
she's tough.
Yeah, and then
I thought you were tough.
Yeah, she is tough. And you know what? You know, it was unfortunate, but you know, they had to make room for COVID patients and kind of relocated us to a different hospital. And then that hospital didn't have our information, and we're literally, you know, weeks out.
Yeah.
So, you know, we just realized we had some buddies from church that had recommended, you know, going the midwife route. And to this day, we will do it again.
Okay.
I mean,
all right.
So, but yeah, you know, my daughter, my eldest, and then her brother, he was born a year after. And it's kind of funny because one was born in Edmonds, Washington, and the other one was born in Edmond, Oklahoma, you know, so.
It's a small world.
Yeah, yeah, but, you know, my family, my wife, it's, you know, it's everything to me, and it's extremely important to me, so that's my family.
That's awesome.
That's my family out
That's
here.
awesome.
Yeah.
I appreciate you stopping by.
Oh, yeah.
and visiting
Thank you
with
so
us.
much.
Just a reminder, early voting will be Thursday, June 23rd, 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. at the Logan County Election Board office to 24 East 5, I believe that is. Also, early voting on Friday, June 24th, also 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. And then on Saturday from 8 a.m. to 2 p.m., of course, get out and vote on Election Day. Tuesday, June 28th, 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. Make sure you know where your polling location is at. Some of those have changed a little bit. If you have any of those questions, be sure to call the Election Board office, 405-282-1900. My good friends Shalene, John, and Sandy can help you out. They will be busy here in the coming days. So a big thank you to them. Logan, thank you so much once again.
Absolutely.
We appreciate everyone stopping in. I'm Chris Evans. Also, a big thank you to Aaron Ryburn, all the graphics, all the switching, all that good stuff. Appreciate Aaron helping us out here today. Until next time, have a great day.